part can you?
Okay, I will start with divestitures and spin-off today. Should we invite anybody else who is in the class for the class? Do you think that would be okay? I mean, we could post the link in the WhatsApp group. If anybody is interested, they could join.
Okay, sir. No.
So, where is the link? Do you have the link? Can you put it in the group?
Yes, sir.
Will you do that while I start the divestitures and spin-offs?
In a strategic management group, sir.
Yeah, in the strategic management group, exactly.
Yes. Done, sir.
Good. Now I'm going to share my screen. Can you tell me when it is visible?
Yes, visible. Visible, sir.
Visible? Fine.
Yes.
So we will be starting with divestitures and spin-offs. If we go back, these are part of what? Part of divestitures and spin-offs. Basically, they are management tools for strategic
management.
Yeah, you must link this with earlier concept, which is, can you see on the screen another slide?
Yes, sir.
What is this slide about?
Corporate restructuring, sir.
Yes. So in corporate restructuring, we have sell-offs as a method of restructuring. And within the sell-offs, we have divestitures and spin-offs, both, as well as, of course, equity carve-outs and split-offs. So this is why you need to understand that this is a strategic tool for corporate restructuring. Let me start the recording. Have I started the recording?
Yes, sir. Recording already started.
Okay, so there's no problem there. So I go back to the corporate restructuring. So within corporate restructuring, there are, of course, many tools available to the manager for strategic purposes. But two of them, which we are going to study today, of course, these both belong to the same category where you are trying to sell your firm. It's a method of selling off. If you sell something, either in whole or a part, you are definitely going to change the structure. So here we are going to change the structure by selling. Of course, you can also, if say, you can also change by the method of expansion or controlling or through ownership change. They all lead to corporate restructuring, but we will be confining ourselves to sell-offs because divestitures and spin-offs are part of that. So we'll start with the sell-offs, which are voluntary in nature, which means I do it because of my own willingness. That becomes a voluntary liquidation. Nobody forced me to do it. Why did I do it? Because of strategic reasons. The strategic reasons could be like I want to consolidate my core competency. So I sell off all the fringes and keep coming to the main thing which I do. For example, when the company was in trouble, we are talking about, of course, Satyam. Satyam, when it got into trouble, they tried to concentrate on their core competency, which was making softwares and taking contracts for softwares. But they had ventured into something called BPO, Business Process Outsourcing Industry. So that industry, they decided to sell to Mahindra. So that was a way of voluntary liquidation, and it was a strategic, way of restructuring. Because if I sell off a part, what do I have? I get two things. I get some money which comes in, which I can utilize with my main business, which is my core competency, and I get rid of something which was causing me headache, and somebody else will look after that business. I do not need to look after that business. So that is something which becomes important. Now, Tata, for example, they have 77 companies at one point. And they found that only 12 of them were giving business, which was 90%. So what happens? 65 of them were basically just a burden. So it makes much more sense to divest, because they are not important to the company. The company should concentrate where the main business is coming, where they are. So they divest it. And thereby they reduce the debt. So obviously, to do business, you have raised funds from various sources, including some debts. So if you are going to sell companies, money will come in, and that money can be used to reduce the debt on existing business. So your debt equity ratio will change and your equity will go up. So you will have lesser forced burdens to contend with. So whenever a company decides to go for corporate restructuring, one of the methods is to sell off. And of course, the alternatives before the business is you can sell the entire company, or you can sell a business unit, or you can sell a particular product line in which you are not dealing. Now tell me, if Satyam sold a BPO business, what was it selling? An entire company, a business unit, or a product line? Think and let me know. They were selling a BPO business, right? Were they selling
Yes,
a product line or a business unit or the entire company?
product lines.
It will be business unit. Okay,
Business.
why? Because in BPO industry, there could be several products.
Yes, sir.
And business process
Whole
outsourcing
business
is a
unit.
type of business which they had
Yeah.
created, which was apart from their own business. Obviously, the entire company was not sold. Of course, ultimately, the entire company was sold to Mahindra. It has now called Satyam Mahindra Tech, but initially not. That was, of course, forced by the government to sell because they had found that there were fraud in the company. So that was another issue, which happened later on. But initially, when they sold the or negotiated the BPO business with Mahindra Tech, it was only a business unit which was getting sold. Later on, we find that the entire company was also sold. All that is corporate restructuring. Okay.
Yes, sir.
Product line would be something like selling a particular product which you are making, which you could be
Yes.
making some other kind of product, but one kind of product you can sell.
Yes.
This is very common in the software industry. For example, WhatsApp was sold to Facebook. You know that.
Yes, sir. Yes.
But you realize that the people who made WhatsApp could easily, and they did go and make another similar kind of a program that may not be so successful, but that is another product. So they can make another product after selling one product line. So that is where the products are generally sold. Sell-offs of products take place in software. For example, MS-DOS that is so famous, Microsoft DOS. If you will see the history, you will find that that software was sold to Microsoft by another company. That was a product that they had developed and they sold the product. Of course, Microsoft made it more popular by getting into an agreement with IBM. But
Yes.
initially, it was a product that was sold to them. People do buy products as part of corporate restructuring, and they do sell products. And of course, entire company, there are a lot of examples where an entire company is sold off. Now, if you are going to sell the entire company, we say that you are liquidating the overall the firm. So in doing that, you have to keep certain things in mind as a strategist, that you must create value for the stockholders, because the stockholders are the one who are actual owners. They have put money into the firm. They have given the equity or capital to the firm. So that value must increase. How will it increase? If it is sold in such a way that those who are part of the company, they will benefit. For example, you can sell to somebody who has no intention of continuing the business. He will start hiving off and selling off small parts. In that case, the value of the stockholder is going to perish. But if somebody who already has a good reputation, he takes the firm, he will make it grow, he will bring his own good reputation with him. What will that do? Like Mahindra did with Satyam. Mahindra was already is in fact already a household name in corporate world, and Mahindra has their own reputation. So when they attach their name to Satyam, the value of Satyam goes up, and the stockholders' money is appreciated because somebody good has come on board. But instead of that, if the company is sold to a broker who has no intention of running a show, his intention is only to sell and make money, then the value of the stockholder will go down. So that is something which needs to be kept in mind when selling. So you should sell to somebody who is worthy of the company, like the Tatas, the Mahindras, and so on. Sometimes you can also sell to multiple parties. Now, when you are selling to multiple parties, make sure that each of them are bringing value addition to the table. Then only the stock of the stockholders will appreciate. So we can sell to multiple parties, especially when it is a large firm and not a single party cannot afford to spend so much money. So Just like, if you look at the real estate, if you make a building on a piece of land which is very costly, a single story, then what happens? The cost of that will go up. If they make multi-storied buildings, they divide it, they sell it to many people, then the cost becomes very cheap because the land is now divided into 6 parts, 10 parts, whatever the height of the building. Similar thing that sometimes you cannot sell a large, there are obstacles. Who will pay so much money? So in that case, the company is sold to more than one party that can be divided and sold. So the company, how they can divide, for example, BPO, business unit could be divided, a product line could be divided. All those are ways in which it can be sold to multiple companies. Then, of course, we have the benefit of debt holders at the cost of stockholders.
Yes.
So you must understand that when you are selling, who will be paid first as per the Companies Act? The debtors. Those who have stockholders, they will be paid last. First, whatever debt you have has to be squared off. So when you are liquidating the firm overall, the debt holders will get their money with interest, whatever interest has been committed by the firm. And subsequently, if money is still left, it will be divided amongst the stockholders. So when you are liquidating, you have got to follow the Companies Act of liquidation. And that is what organizations have to do. Debt has to be paid on face value. So whatever is the face value, where do we find the face value? Can you tell me, Amit? Where do we find the face value?
सर कैपिटल सर कंपनी का
It is on the instrument. For example, if it is a certificate or a bond, on that it will be written what is the face value. You may have bought, say, some things like Kisan Vikas Patra or National Savings Scheme from the post office.
Yes.
So, or any FD. Each of these have a face value. It is printed on, for example, 10,000.
Yes, sir.
So the 10,000
Yes,
rupees
sir.
becomes the face value. So the debt has
Yes.
to be paid on the face value of the instrument. Instrument could be a certificate, could be a bond, anything.
Yes,
Or
sir.
it could be a, basically in finance we have we call it, all these are called instruments. Okay,
Instrument, yes.
which are basically bill of exchange. They must fulfill all the terms of bills of exchange. That means there should be dates properly mentioned, signatories properly there, stamping, clearly stating what is the face value, when it is to be paid and all that. So whenever you are liquidating, irrespective of when it is due, you have got to pay the debt on the face value. The debt could be less in terms of the market value. So who will gain in that case? If the market value is more and you are paying less, then obviously the debtors will benefit. So we have debtors benefiting, sometimes stockholders benefiting. All those are going to take place whenever there is liquidation. But basically, you have got to ensure that Companies Act is being followed when liquidating a firm, because it lays down proper rules and regulations through which it is to be sold. And of course, now we also have the NCLT, which takes care of such issues. But here there are different set of rules if it is a partial sell-off. Partial means you are not selling the entire company. The first option is ruled out. The second two options is left. You could either sell a separate business unit or you could sell a product line which you have. So here we have partial sell-offs, and there we will be ensuring that only a part of the company is sold, not the entire company. Payment could come in the way of cash or in way of securities. Okay. Now, when you look at the what is NPV, net present value, what is it? Yes.
NPV, sir. I am saying full form, sir. NPV.
Yes, we usually have the net present value or NPV, which is associated with the stock of the firm. That is, if you want to know what is the value of a stock of a company today, you can go into the net and look at the NPV of that particular company. That will tell you what is its net present value. So a 10 rupee stock could be worth 10,000 rupees or could be worth 5 rupees. It varies on the day-to-day performance of the firm. So when a company is sold, so when we look at the okay, so that was a bit of a disturbance. Taken care of that. Now we come back to the, of course, all the rights have been withdrawn. Nobody can now disturb us. And I will also trace who did it. And if I can find out email ID, he will pay through his mails. Don't worry. So we have, after the class, I will trace who has tried to disrupt the class. It's very easily done because everything is being recorded and computer has the entire code available to me.
Yes, sir.
So what happens is that the net present value gets appreciated when it is partially sold off, and that should be an objective of any partial sell-off, that your NPV increases. It can have both a positive or a negative impact depending on what is the perception of the people and the performance of the organization on being sold off. If you are selling off for a positive reason, like concentrating on your own core competency, then of course you will find that these NPV will take a positive side. But if it is found out that you are selling under duress or you are forced to sell because you have certain issues, then the NPV will become negative and there will be a negative effect. So objective of any partial sell-off should be to have a positive effect on the NPV. And that will happen if the inflows is greater than what would come in if it is continued. For example, if I'm going to continue doing a business, then whatever is my NPV would be less than if I have sold part of it, then my NPV has increased or my inflow has increased. That means that I'm in a beneficial position by a partial sell-off. So that partial sell-off should lead to certain benefits. Only that will help. Now we have the motive for divestures. So divest means to get rid of a certain. So we can sell part or division to a third party. We can divest for certain reasons. What would those reasons be? I want to increase my working capital. Working capital is necessary to run the day-to-day business. So if I divest, I will run the working capital. Then we have payback debt. So if there is a debt which I'm having, and if I have to pay back, then I'm unable to pay. For example, I've taken a loan and I need to service that loan, but I'm unable to do it. A good way is to divest. Then I get money coming in and I use that money for paying back my debt. Sometimes assets are there which are unutilized. For example, if you look at the railway, a lot of land that they have in and around the station is theirs, but they are rather encroached on, and the railway is not getting benefit of that land. So what should the railway do? They should sell that or hire, rather lease that land to people who can open shops and they will earn money, and part of that money they will pay as lease to the railway. So railway, instead of having a worthless asset, now has got an asset which is paying. So that is the reason for divesting. Better to divest. Sometimes it is even better to sell off. So if you sell, the other organization, the third party to whom it goes, can make better utilization of that asset. That could be in terms of building. That is why you will find in railways, they have certain rooms which they sell to people who can run restaurants in the platforms, who can do other things. All those are part of converting assets into certain worths that will bring in money which can be used for certain purpose. Sometimes these assets are interfering with the profitable operations. Now you don't have space. Why? Because a lot of useless things are kept. Now these useless things are assets. Better sell of that asset and create a free space. So sometimes these assets, they interfere with the profitable operations. In that case also, it is better to sell these assets or divest these. So these are the 4 reasons why we divest. First is working capital. Second is to service debts. Third is to get the right appreciation of the assets, because to me it has got less value, but to somebody else it has more value. And the third is to ensure that these assets are not coming in the way of my performing better. So get rid of it. We sometimes sell a part of the business. Now, that business could be making a loss. For example, loss-making subsidiaries. Like we saw that there were 77 companies with Tata, only 12 of them were giving. Yes.
I am saying, sir, 12 companies are giving much profit out of
Yes,
77.
mainly 12 companies are performing. Others are not performing. So it's because they are making losses or they are just barely managing to survive. So it's better to sell off those companies. So they are the examples of loss-making subsidiaries, because they are not giving you the profit that these 12 companies are giving. So why keep them? So if there is a loss-making subsidiary and you get rid of it, what are you doing? You are increasing your gain. Your efficiency increases. Now, earlier, whatever profit you made had to divide it with 77. Now only divide by 12. So obviously efficiency of that will be much more. Then it also enables you to refocus. So if I have gone astray and deviated from the core competency, then we find that we can come back to our core competency and refocus on our main business, which is going to give us a good return. So that is another reason for selling a subsidiary. Sometimes information effects are there, and these information effects are like, in the coming days, this business will probably not be so doing so well, or certain information that, like we have seen in Bihar, all alcohol producing companies had to close down because of the law. So if such and such information comes, it is better to quickly sell off and get rid of such companies, because in future their value is going to become very low. And those who are able to sell off, they have the information, and that information can be utilized by selling off. Sometimes those information could be that certain new product has been developed which will replace this. For example, earlier we used to have pagers, gramophone records. All these have gone. So if you have information that tomorrow we are going to have a disk operating system, rather CDs, then today people who are in gramophone business would like to sell. So that information leads to change in technology, could be an information. Then we have wealth transfers. Sometimes we need to transfer the wealth. For that reason we sell, because we want to say move from one place to the other. In that case, wealth transfers happen. Sometimes it is also because of the hereditary effect. The earlier the company now is being going to the sons. So there are 3 sons, 4 sons. Then wealth transfer will happen. The companies will be sold to different people. Then we have the tax. The tax will also be a reason for shifting from one to another. Sell one and then move to another place where the tax is less. So that way also it acts. The MNCs especially, are very prudent, and wherever they find that the tax is heavy, they move their business from there to another place. So they sell off a part of that business which is existing in, say, a country like Sri Lanka, which is heavily taxing the company, and they move to a country like, say, Singapore, where the tax is very low. So those MNCs, they will keep doing this for their own benefit. So these are the motives for divestures, to save tax whenever the wealth transfer happens due to change in ownership or whatever reason. information effects which are there, which tells you that in future the business may not be doing so well, or you want to refocus on your core competency or gain efficient. All those are reasons for divestitures. So if you look at efficiency gains and refocus, this is all about concentrating on your core competency. So here the core competency is what is the business which I do best, where I have the advantage, where I am good at doing certain things. That is what I am going to look at. And when I do that, I become in an advantageous position, or strategically I gain a space. So by getting rid, I create reverse synergy, which means now I've got rid of unnecessary areas where I was concentrating and trying to improve. And now I've only got, so what I'm left with, that value has increased. That is reverse synergy. Then through getting rid of unnecessary things, I have been able to now gain a advantage in the market because I am doing what I do best. I'm concentrating all my efforts on what I do best. So we change in competitive advantage. Diversification lost value over time. So when we diversify, generally what happens, the reason for diversifying is to say reduce the risks that are taken. But when you reduce the risk, we know the greater the risk, the greater the gain. You are also reducing the gain. So whenever we are diversifying over the time, the meaning of that diversification is lost. And the value has gone over the period of time. You don't need to diversify, you need rather to, because you've got a core competency which is giving you results, you need to come down on that. So we need ultimately to focus on the core activity. I may be very good at software, so that is the business I should be doing. I'm very good at selling things, so that is the business I should be doing. Whatever I'm very good at is what I should be doing. I should not be doing things where I'm dependent on others, at which I'm not good, because all that will lead to issues with myself. Okay.
Sir, diversification, can you once again repeat, sir?
Diversification is done basically.
Means diversification lost value over time, sir. Taking risk in.
I'll tell you, when we are talking about diversification, we are talking about getting into businesses other than what business we have done earlier. And why do we do that? Because initially there is a risk involved in my own business, which I'm doing. So supposing I'm in the business of making shoes, and tomorrow these shoes which I make is from leather, and tomorrow these leather shoes maybe are banned. So there's a risk. It could be that I'm unable to get enough leather for making my shoes. That's a risk. With all those risks, I was doing business. So I decide that apart from making shoes, let me also start selling umbrellas. So I get into another business, which is of making umbrellas. That is called diversification, because I have now started doing a business which is different from making shoes. Making umbrellas is very different from making shoes, right?
Yes,
so
sir.
when that happens, it is called diversification.
Understand,
Advantage
sir.
of diversification is I get the benefit of risk reduction. So if I am unable to make shoes for any reason, or if somebody else makes better shoes than me, then I can concentrate on my umbrella and it will not be a total loss. I can make umbrellas and earn some money through that. That is the objective. But over time, what happens? Over a period of time, I have become a good name in making shoes. For example, I've become something like an Adidas or a Nike. Now, who will beat me? This is my core competency. I'm an excellent shoemaker. Now, do I need to make umbrellas? The answer is no. The
No, sir.
reason why I made umbrella in the first place is lost over a period of time. Initially, when I made umbrellas, there was a reason. I was not known for making shoes. I was struggling to set that up. So there was a risk involved. And that risk I diversified by making umbrellas. But today, things have changed over a period of time. With due course, now I have become very good at making shoes. I've got a name, a reputation, and it has become my core competency. I'm competent to make excellent shoes for the market at a very low cost. So now I don't need to make umbrellas. So that is where what it means when it says that diversification has lost its value over time. So over a period of time, the meaning and the reason for which I did the diversification does not exist anymore. So I need to sell that umbrella company and refocus on my core competency, which is making shoes, and improve that. Is that clear?
Yes, sir. Clear, sir.
Fine. So there are, as I told you, information effects, wealth transfers, and reasons. So whenever the investors, they are given the information that this is the way to increase my share, they will welcome such if steps. So that information, which is with the managers of the firms, is shared with the investors, and investors give a go ahead, then there is the sell-off taking place. Sometimes you need to boost the share prices. The share prices are not increasing. So to do that, you increase by sell-offs or through divestitures. Sometimes you need to change investment strategy or operating portfolio. Sometimes you need to do that. So there again, you need to divest. Sometimes things can go wrong. If the proper information is not conveyed, and if people think that you are selling because you are desperate, because you have not done the business well, because you have failed to do the right thing, in that case, what will happen? In that case, the prices of the shares will go down, which is that is because of the wrong signal. So the signal that must go through information should be a positive signal. Then only you can. Obviously, your enemies are there. They will try to pull you down by spreading all kinds of rumors and things like that. Then you have wealth transfer from debt to stockholders. So whenever the wealth transfer happens from debt to stockholders, we find that we have a situation where the debt equity ratio has changed and the equity has increased. So if the total value remains, what will happen? The equity will rise. So the stock will improve and the performance of the stock in the market will also improve. So we have, of course, some places give us tax advantage. That is, the previous year's losses can be carried forward. Sometimes tax shield advantage is there, where interest payment on taxes are considered. And as I said, sometimes there is especially with multinational companies operating in different countries, there are differences in taxes, differences in method of taxes. Like we used to have earlier multiple point tax, now we have GST. So obviously they will look at those and accordingly they will shift their business by divesting. Then we have spin-offs. Now, in divesting, we were selling the entire company or a business unit or a product line, right? These were the three things that was happening. Now, when we go for a spin-off, what do? We separate from the main business a portion of the business. That is why it is known as spin-off. A portion is separated. And that separated portion, after it has become a different business, then that part only is sold. So here again in spin-off, we are not selling the entire company. We are selling only a part which we decide to separate. Which part will be separated will be decided by the managers or the firm. So obviously the objective in divestures, we were selling for the purpose of cash and securities. You recall that? Now we are selling for common stock. So if through spin-offs, you will only get a share of the company. Okay. So there was cash and securities. Here it is common stock. This is the difference between spin-off and divestures. It is distributed on pro rata basis to the shareholders. If you are an existing shareholder, what will happen? This new stock, because I have spun off and made another company. So earlier I used to have, say, a share of 100 shares, 10 rupees each. Now, actual market value of this 10 rupee share has increased to, let us say, 1,000 rupees. So now what I do through spin-off, I create A and B. So now I will have, say, 900 rupee share and 100 rupee share. So if I am having 100 share of 1,000, now I will get, if the value appreciates, maybe I'll get 1,000 rupees and 100 rupees additional share. So I will have now 1,000 rupees and 100 rupees additional. Or if the value has not appreciated, I will get 900 and 100 rupees. So I will now have, instead of one share, two shares, and one of these shares I can sell also. So that is the concept of spin-off. That management could be different. So on pro rata basis, this is how it is distributed. If you have 100, you will get 100 of the additional new. If you have 1,000 shares, you will get 1,000 of the additional new. That is pro rata basis, depending on how many shares you have. Then these assets are transferred to the new subsidiary, which are intended to be spun off. So what happens is that these are the assets which are not required for my core competency. So I shift all these assets to the new spin-off business, and that can be sold. So it results in two publicly held independent companies. In divestures, that did not happen. But here now we will have two publicly held independent companies, one of which is lined up for being sold off. Now we'll look at advantages and disadvantages of spin-offs. Okay. Or shall we stop and we'll continue in the next class?
Continue in the next.
Okay. So have a nice day, and I'll inform you again when we have the next class.
Okay.
Let me stop the recording.